Imagine walking into work one morning, just like any other day, when you overhear something so extraordinary that it stops you in your tracks. That's exactly what happened to Jonathan Kellerman, the CEO of Halberg International, a global logistics company based in downtown Fort Worth, Texas. On this seemingly ordinary Monday, as people tapped on their phones, clacked their shoes against the tiled lobby floor, and sipped coffee like it held all the answers, an unexpected voice caught his attention. A voice speaking fluent Mandarin. But here's the twist. It wasn't coming from one of his international sales reps or a visiting executive. It was coming from someone wearing a burgundy janitor's uniform, mopping the floors he walked on every day. And that moment would change everything for her, for him, and for the entire company. The story begins with Denise Atwater, a woman who had spent 13 years blending into the background at Halberg International. She was part of the cleaning crew, the kind of presence most people don't even notice, unless they need help finding a misplaced trash can. Her short twists were always pulled back neatly into a ponytail, and her demeanor was quiet but warm. Most employees passed her without a second glance, not out of malice, but simply because she was just the janitor. Yet, beneath that unassuming exterior lay a hidden brilliance, one that no one saw coming. When Kellerman paused to listen closer, he realized she wasn't just speaking Mandarin. Within moments, she switched seamlessly to Spanish, then French, guiding a delivery man and correcting a vendor with ease. By the time Kellerman stepped forward to ask if she really spoke 9 languages, the air was thick with curiosity and possibility. What makes this story compelling isn't just the shock of discovering untapped talent where least expected. It's about the layers beneath Denise's life, the struggles she faced, the sacrifices she made, and the resilience that kept her going, despite being overlooked for years. Born in Toledo, Ohio, Denise grew up in a working-class family. Her father was a pipe fitter, and her mother worked as a nurse's aide. Education was their mantra, drilled into her like a lifeline. She earned a full scholarship to Kent State University, majoring in linguistics, and was well on her way to earning a master's degree until life threw her curveballs. First, her mother fell ill, forcing Denise to drop out and return home to care for her. Then 6 months later, her father passed away suddenly from a stroke. With bills piling up and a newborn daughter to raise alone, Denise took whatever job she could find: grocery stores, nursing homes, temp agencies, until finally landing a position as a night shift janitor at Halberg International. For over a decade, she cleaned offices while teaching herself new languages through borrowed textbooks, online recordings, and newspapers in multiple tongues. To her, language wasn't just a skill. It was a lifeline, a way to feel connected to the world when her own felt like it was falling apart. Jonathan Kellerman, on the other hand, represents a different side of the corporate spectrum. A seasoned leader in global logistics, he had built his career around cross-cultural communication, hiring translators, and expanding operations across continents. He prided himself on understanding the nuances of international business. Yet here he stood, face to face with someone who embodied those very qualities effortlessly, and she worked 2 floors below him, scrubbing toilets. As he invited Denise to his office that morning, there was an undeniable tension in the air. What did she think of this sudden summons? Would she trust him, or would she assume the worst? The weight of her past experiences, years of being underestimated, ignored, and dismissed, was palpable. Yet as they sat across from each other, her calmness and clarity shone through. This was more than a conversation. It was the beginning of a transformation neither of them could have anticipated. As the day unfolded, Kellerman found himself unable to shake the image of Denise speaking 3 languages before 9 a.m., solving problems effortlessly, while others rushed around clueless. His mind raced with possibilities. Was it possible that the key to unlocking better communication, smoother negotiations, and stronger relationships with international partners had been right under their noses all along? By late afternoon, he decided to test his theory. A group from the São Paulo office had arrived early for a meeting, and their translator had cancelled last minute. Kellerman approached Denise with a simple request. "Can you help?" Without hesitation, she agreed. What followed was nothing short of remarkable. In conference room 4C, Denise didn't just translate words. She bridged gaps, diffused tension, and brought humor to the table. Even though Kellerman couldn't understand Portuguese, he understood connection, and the Brazilian executives left visibly impressed. One even remarked, "She's better than anyone we've worked with this year." But the real question lingered. What happens next? By now, whispers were spreading throughout the building. Employees who had never given Denise a second thought began to take notice. Some admired her newfound visibility, while others questioned how someone who scrubbed urinals last week could land such a pivotal role. Tension simmered beneath the surface, especially among those who felt they deserved recognition more than she did. Meanwhile, Denise grappled with her own doubts. Could she step into this unfamiliar world of suits and boardrooms without losing herself? And what about the people counting on her downstairs? Would they resent her rise or celebrate it? Just as things started to settle, a new challenge emerged in the form of Eleanor Craig, a senior board member known for her sharp tongue and rigid views on corporate hierarchy. Summoned to a tense meeting on the 17th floor, Denise faced questions that cut deep. How could someone with no degree, no formal training, and no management experience possibly handle high-level international affairs? The room bristled with skepticism, but Denise's response was calm, confident, and impossible to ignore. And just like that, the stage was set for a showdown that would ripple through every corner of Hallberg International. Would Denise prove her critics wrong, or would the weight of expectations crush her spirit? Could Kellerman's bold decision inspire meaningful change, or would it unravel everything he'd worked for? As the sun dipped below the Fort Worth skyline, casting long shadows across the glass tower, Denise sat alone in her modest new office, staring at the old janitor badge tucked inside her desk drawer. It was a reminder of where she came from, and perhaps a warning of the battles still ahead. Little did she know, her journey was only beginning. Stay tuned to find out what happens next. The backlash began subtly at first. A few snide remarks in the break room, a couple of passive-aggressive emails questioning whether Denise's promotion was fair. But it quickly escalated when Eleanor Craig called for an emergency board meeting. She wasn't just skeptical. She was determined to dismantle what Jonathan Kellerman had built with Denise's promotion. By Thursday afternoon, rumors swirled that Eleanor planned to challenge the decision outright, arguing that someone without formal credentials couldn't possibly handle the complexities of international affairs. Employees who had once whispered admiration now hesitated, unsure which side to take. Was this about fairness or fear? The tension hung thick in the air, like storm clouds refusing to burst. Denise felt it all, the sideways glances, the hushed conversations that stopped whenever she entered a room. She tried to brush it off, focusing instead on proving herself through action. Her mornings were spent reviewing vendor contracts, her afternoons coordinating with overseas teams, and her evenings buried in spreadsheets, tracking delays, and miscommunications. Yet, no matter how many problems she solved, there was always someone waiting to point out what she lacked. A degree, experience in corporate politics, or even the right wardrobe. It wasn't enough to be good, she had to be perfect, and perfection came at a cost. For the first time since her promotion, Denise found herself lying awake at night, replaying every interaction, every word, wondering if she'd made a mistake stepping into this world. Jonathan Kellerman, meanwhile, faced his own battles. As much as he believed in Denise, not everyone shared his vision. Investors started asking questions during quarterly reviews. Was this sudden shift toward unorthodox hiring practices a sign of instability? Could Halberg International afford to gamble on unconventional talent? Even some of his closest allies within the company expressed doubts. "It's not personal," one senior manager told him over lunch, "but we can't risk alienating our core team by promoting someone so far outside the norm." Kellerman listened quietly, nodding where appropriate, but inside, he seethed. This wasn't just about Denise anymore. It was about something bigger. If they couldn't see her value, then maybe the problem wasn't her at all. Maybe it was them. Eleanor Craig wasted no time making her move. On Friday morning, she summoned Denise to the 17th floor conference room, a space reserved for high-stakes negotiations and confidential discussions. The walls were lined with framed awards and accolades, reminders of the company's storied history. To Denise, it felt less like a meeting room and more like a courtroom. Eleanor sat at the head of the table, her sharp suit and colder demeanor setting the tone. Without preamble, she slid a folder across the polished surface. "Your file," she said flatly. "No college degree, no management certifications, no prior corporate training. 3 weeks ago, you were mopping floors. Care to explain how you ended up here?" Denise didn't flinch. She opened the folder, scanned its contents, and closed it again. "I speak 9 languages," she replied evenly. "I understand cultures, customs, and nuances most people miss. I've already fixed 2 vendor contracts that saved us thousands, cleared a 3-month delay in our Morocco deal, and helped secure a verbal agreement with Brazilian partners that legal is finalizing next week. Does that answer your question?" Eleanor pursed her lips, clearly unimpressed. "You think charm and instinct are enough to run a global logistics operation?" Denise leaned forward slightly, her voice steady but firm. "No, ma'am. I think results are what matter. And I deliver." The room fell silent, except for the faint hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Eleanor studied Denise, searching for cracks in her composure, but found none. Finally she stood, closing the folder with a snap. "You're a gamble," she declared, "and gambles don't always pay off." Denise rose to meet her gaze, unfazed. "I'm used to being a gamble," she said softly. "My entire life has been one." With that, she turned and left, leaving Eleanor standing alone in the sterile silence of the conference room. As Denise walked back to her office, the weight of everything pressed down on her. She stepped outside, crossing the street to sit on a bench across from the towering glass building she now worked in. So many years, she thought, staring up at the structure. Years of walking past those doors, unnoticed, invisible. Now, everyone saw her, and not all of them liked what they saw. She pulled out her phone and dialed her daughter's number. When the familiar voice answered, warmth flooded through her. "Hey, Ma," her daughter said cheerfully. "Everything okay?" Denise hesitated, then nodded to herself. "Yeah, just needed to hear your voice." They talked for a while, about groceries, her daughter's dog, a new movie she wanted to watch. Nothing profound, just the comfort of connection. But as they hung up, Denise felt steadier, grounded. She reminded herself why she was doing this, not for recognition or revenge, but because she knew she could make a difference. Standing up, she crossed the street and rode the elevator back to her floor. By Monday morning, she was ready. Word of the confrontation with Eleanor spread quickly, and to everyone's surprise, Denise didn't back down. Instead, she showed up early, spoke confidently at a team meeting, and took a call with the German office without needing a translator. Calm, sharp, unbothered. That same day, a handwritten note appeared on the whiteboard outside her office. "We see you." No name, just 3 words that carried more weight than any title ever could. In the weeks that followed, something remarkable happened. People started coming to her, not just for translation, but for advice, guidance, confidence. Interns sought her out before big presentations. Mid-level managers asked for tips on navigating cross-cultural negotiations, and even long-time employees confided in her about their own struggles with feeling overlooked. Denise became more than a cultural liaison. She became a catalyst for change, slowly reshaping the culture of the company from the inside out. One afternoon, Jonathan joined her for coffee in the break room. "Been hearing good things," he said casually. Denise sipped from her cup, smiling faintly. "Been trying to ignore the bad ones." He chuckled. "You're making waves." She looked at him, curious. "Is that a good thing?" He grinned. "Around here it means you're doing something right." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, before he added, "I've been thinking about starting a training program for internal talent, especially folks working non-desk roles. There's probably more deniers in this building." She nodded thoughtfully. "There are. They just haven't been seen yet." He looked at her. Sincerity etched into his expression. "Want to help me build it?" She smiled, a spark of excitement lighting her eyes. "Already started in my head. By the end of the month, the pilot program launched, a new initiative called Voice Inside, designed to give workers across departments access to language training, leadership mentoring, and visibility across divisions." It was Denise's idea, and it caught fire. Yet even as progress unfolded, the looming showdown with Eleanor loomed larger. The board scheduled a vote to determine whether Denise's role would remain permanent. Tensions reached a fever pitch, dividing the company into factions. Some rallied behind Denise, seeing her as proof that brilliance exists beyond traditional markers of success. Others sided with Eleanor, clinging to the belief that systems exist for a reason. As the date of the vote approached, the atmosphere grew electric, charged with anticipation. Everyone knew the outcome would define not just Denise's future, but the soul of Hallberg International itself. What would happen next remained uncertain. But one thing was clear. The stakes had never been higher. The board meeting was set for Friday morning, and the tension in the building was palpable. Everyone knew what was at stake. Denise's role, her future, and perhaps even Jonathan Kellerman's leadership style hung in the balance. As employees filed into the conference room on the 18th floor, whispers filled the air. Some backed Denise wholeheartedly, while others remained skeptical, clinging to old ideas about hierarchy and qualifications. Eleanor Craig sat at the head of the table, her expression unreadable, but her posture rigid, like a storm cloud refusing to break. Jonathan entered last, his calm demeanor masking the turmoil inside him. He glanced at Denise, who sat quietly, hands folded in her lap, eyes scanning the room as if memorizing every detail. Eleanor opened the meeting with precision, laying out her case against keeping Denise in her current position. She cited policies, invoked precedent, and questioned whether one person's talent could outweigh decades of established procedure. "We run a business," she said sharply. Not a charity or an experiment. The room grew quieter, heavier as her words sank in. A few heads nodded, though many more stayed still, unsure which side to take. When Eleanor turned to Denise, her tone softened slightly, almost mockingly. Miss Atwater, do you have anything to say for yourself? Denise didn't hesitate. She stood slowly, her movements deliberate, her voice steady. I understand why some of you might doubt me, she began, looking around the room. I've doubted myself plenty of times too. But let me ask you this. How many vendor contracts did we lose last quarter because of mistranslations? How much time did our teams waste waiting for interpreters during meetings? And how often have we missed opportunities simply because we couldn't connect, really connect, with partners overseas? Her gaze lingered on Eleanor before shifting to the rest of the board. When I stepped into this role, I didn't come with a degree or fancy credentials. What I brought was fluency, not just in languages, but in understanding people. And I delivered results. That's not luck, it's skill. The room fell silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. No one moved, no one spoke. Then, unexpectedly, Victor, the same man who had once dismissed her with thinly veiled disdain, spoke up. She's right, he admitted gruffly. Her work has streamlined operations in ways none of us anticipated. We're closing deals faster, resolving disputes smoother, and building relationships stronger than ever before. Other voices joined in, cautiously at first, then with growing conviction. One by one, colleagues recounted moments when Denise had gone above and beyond, not just in translation, but in problem-solving, empathy, and leadership. Jonathan watched silently, his chest swelling with pride. By the time it was his turn to speak, the tide had shifted. This isn't about breaking rules, he said firmly. It's about rewriting them. Talent doesn't always wear a suit or carry a diploma. Sometimes it wears a uniform and pushes a mop. Our job as leaders is to see that talent, nurture it, and give it room to grow. If we can't do that, then we don't deserve to lead. His words resonated deeply, echoing off the walls of the conference room. When the vote finally came, it wasn't close. The board unanimously decided to keep Denise in her role, not as an exception, but as a testament to what happens when potential is recognized and nurtured. As the meeting adjourned, Eleanor Craig approached Denise, her usual sharpness replaced by something softer. You've earned your place here, she said quietly. Don't make me regret supporting you. Denise met her gaze evenly. I won't. In the weeks that followed, life at Halberg International changed in subtle yet profound ways. The Voice Inside program flourished, giving employees from all levels access to training and mentorship. Interns who had once felt invisible now walked taller, knowing their contributions mattered. Even the janitorial staff gained newfound respect, their work celebrated in company newsletters and team meetings. Denise became a symbol of possibility, proof that brilliance could exist anywhere, if only someone took the time to look. One evening, months after the board meeting, Jonathan found Denise in the newly renamed Atwater room. She was helping a group of new hires practice basic phrases in different languages, her laughter mingling with theirs. Watching her, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. You've done more than change this company, he said when the session ended. You've reminded us what it means to truly see each other. Denise smiled, tucking a stray strand of hair behind her ear. I didn't do it alone. You gave me a chance. And so did everyone else who believed in me. They stood there for a moment, the weight of everything they'd been through, settling between them like an unspoken promise. Later that night, Denise drove home, under a sky streaked with orange and pink. For the first time in years, she didn't feel the need to prove herself to anyone. Not to her critics, not to her doubters, and certainly not to the ghosts of her past. She thought about her daughter, who had recently graduated nursing school, and how proud her parents would have been to see them both thriving. Pulling into her driveway, she paused, staring at the small house she'd worked so hard to keep. It wasn't perfect, but it was hers, a testament to resilience, determination, and hope. As she stepped inside, she caught sight of the old janitor badge tucked away in a frame on her wall. It wasn't a reminder of where she'd been, but of how far she'd come, and of the countless others still waiting for their chance to shine. Denise Atwater wasn't just a name anymore. She was a legacy, a beacon for anyone who dared to dream, bigger than their circumstances. And in that moment, she knew the best stories aren't about where you start, they're about where you end, and the lives you touch along the way.